Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the We Shall Not Sleep podcast. Thanks for joining us this week. Hope you're all doing well on this Camel Day, this Wednesday. I just have to say that it has been crazy. I'm a lot like you Americans, my fellow Americans out there. It is it's one of those things that we kind of go through this period of like flux. It seems like in our culture where either people are just going through a lot of sickness, a lot of illness, and then, life gets really busy as the sports seasons change, the seasons change in general, and we just have, it feels like no time or the way that we do life with our friends and families. It's like this massive ebb and flow. And part of what I am trying to figure out with my grad school class is how to honor and keep the Sabbath day, in a consistent way. And that's something it's been a burden of actually having to schedule time for solitude, time for relaxation. So that's something has been difficult. But being able to be, how do we want to say, intentional in that regard is truly something that I am really thinking about. And what does this all do? Is that in the midst of life, so many times we have stress. It's going to be part of life. And we look at our schedule, especially us Americans, we are addicted to being busy. Time in our schedule and our time, because of our work, because of how our culture operates around sports, we don't really, as the average American churchgoer, feel like we have a lot of free time for me. And especially if you could ever talk to someone and they say, "Hey, so what's been going on? What's been keeping you busy? Or what are you doing? What do you do for work?" And there's this implicit understanding that everyone's busy, therefore everyone's stressed. And when everyone is busy, and if you're not busy, someone says, "Oh, I just got nothing but free time." People, you could almost picture how people would kind of furrow their brow and be kind of caught off guard by that. Like, what do you mean? Do you not work? Oh, no, I work. Well, what about your family? Oh, my family's good. My kids are in grade school and have a lot. It's sometimes it really wouldn't compute with a lot of people, because busyness is related in our minds to success. It means that you're grinding, or we call it the grind. And I definitely believe in a daily toil. Of course, that's part of, especially like one of the results of the fall. But yet I'm wondering the things that we have to do, like from an adult standpoint. If you just think about it, bear with me. You're an adult, and let's just say that you're married and you have kids. Well, not only do you have your job to support your income, you have your spouse, you have your kids. And every day and every week when you plan out your schedule, there's either going to be a doctor's appointment, dentist appointment, haircut, a meeting outside of work, a volunteer opportunity. Maybe you do something for the church, but there's certainly practices in sports, or there's going to be recital practice. That most kids have something to do, I would say. It's not like, even homeschool kids, it's not as if they are just sitting home and not working, or are in a play or a dance, or they're in some sort of organized recreational activity. And then the parents, if you even have a hobby, if you have time for it, or you're not spending time with each other. And because of the way our work schedule is, that you go for a big vacation, PTO's kind of, it's, some people have a couple of weeks, some people have 4, anywhere in between, depending on if you're financially capable, whether you can go on a vacation other than just, doing that one trip once a year, and everything else is just taking a day here or there. It's a very stressful lifestyle. And those are some things that are absolutely required. But I'm more interested, after this massive intro, which, again, the reason why I'm prefacing this is to put ourselves in this mindset of what your weekly activities are. And then to go, well, how much of that is actually something I'm putting on my own plate? This is what Oswald Chambers talks about, in the idea that if God gives you a bitter cup for a season of life, do not try to make it sweet, and vice versa. If he's given you a sweet cup, do not try to make it bitter. Take everything as God gives it to you. And this is something that when you look at the totality of life and how stressed out everyone is, when you compare that to the life that Jesus talks about, Matthew 11, come to me all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. You combine that with a Sermon on the Mount, do not worry about tomorrow. Do not worry about anything. Do not boast about tomorrow. Do not even consider it, for tomorrow has enough trouble of its own. Live in the present. Tied again with Oswald Chambers, if God's given you a really sweet cup, like he's blessed you with a season of rest and joy, don't try to be that Debbie Downer where it's like, oh, well, it's only going to get bad again. What if you're just taking life as it comes and finding gratitude all the time? So this is some perspective, I've really been challenging my home church on of actually figuring out what the things that we're adding to our plate stress-wise. Stuff that God has no interest in us performing or pursuing. It's like, well, I'm so stressed out as of late. Well, they'll give me a breakdown of your daily schedule and how many of those tasks are things that you honestly must do. As a task-oriented individual, I would feel if I fail if I don't do a certain amount of tasks, 1 through 8. Every day I do a Wordle, for example. I do the New York Times mini crossword. Other times, like I post a daily question on Facebook, and I read my Bible, and I practice Duolingo. And if I don't do those 5 things, do I feel like I'm a failure? Like, what would happen if I didn't do any of those things in a day? And that's something that drives me, and that would bring a lot of stress because I'm like, I have to do those things. Well, for what purpose? Now, they don't bring stress in doing. They're actually quite edifying. It's a lot of mental exercise, spiritual investment. Absolutely. They don't have to be quote unquote negative things. They don't have to be. Like, you can have a desire for your life to serve God in a particular capacity, which is absolutely biblical. But it just might not be the path that God has for you. Saying, hey, son, hey, daughter, I think that's excellent that you want to serve in that way, or you want this thing, and you want to have this type of career, you want to have this, but that's not what I desire for you. Ooh. That's the thing, too, is we don't always have to contrast it. Those things in your life don't always have to be quote-unquote negative things, but they certainly add stress because it's like, well, if I don't do this, then what happens? Maybe God could fill your cup a different way. And maybe sometimes the cup we're drinking is bitter because we are choosing it. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know what it is for you, but most certainly it's the one thing that binds a lot of us Americans together is our busyness and the stress that comes with being busy. And more importantly, if we're not busy, what does that look like socially to our closest friends and family? Does that mean that we're lazy, not successful? We're not making as much money as we possibly could. We're not stretching ourselves and showing that we're worth it somehow. And I like to think that also goes into the consumerism of the church. That if I just do all these things, then therefore I will have a clean conscience at the end of the night. It has nothing to do with whether or not how I approach the eternal throne of God, but it's about making me feel better because I know I'm putting in the work. It's like, there's sometimes those are the things that really sit me down and really make me confront my insecurities, my fears. So I would like to encourage you today, and this is an exercise I've been doing. Go into your calendar app, and from work to church, to your workouts, to your study time, to your kids' practices, take a Google Calendar or a big calendar, buy one, and actually partition out every activity outside of, and including bedtime. Put in your sleep time, and then truly analyze where is the stress coming from. Once you see it on paper, and once you see how much you're cramming in, and then it might be like, well, why do I feel like a failure as a parent? What are my spouse and I not communicating? Or I feel very distant from God. It's like, well, look what you're doing to yourself. Where is there room? And that goes for everyone, including myself, which is what I've had to do. And it's like, oh, I need to schedule the Sabbath. And like, so most of us, like, we don't have 24 hours to give to rest. And it's like, well, yeah, you do. We do. If it was important enough, absolutely we do. because we create space in our schedules all the time, but for really important things. But Sabbath isn't that important. Rest isn't that important because it's kind of like whatever, you know? But yet God created us. It was created for us. The Sabbath day was created for us. God rested to show us how. And then he commanded us to do it. But we don't really do it. Like, what are we doing? So, this is one of those things that I want to keep in the back of your head. What does it truly mean to rest in the Lord? And reduce your stress. Starts with an evaluation and a looking in the mirror. That's what I encourage this week. Thank you so much for bearing with us. May God bless you. May God keep you.